Yes, the trauma vampire. The trauma vampire. Let's talk about the another kind of trauma vampire I was talking about with someone the other day that I didn't even realize that this type of individual was that common until I started talking about an experience I had a few years ago with this in good few years ago now, 8 years and years ago now, when I was going through a particularly difficult stage in my life, and it wasn't. It was a very unhappy, very unpleasant, and very stressful time. I was under tremendous personal stress, and I was basically on my own dealing with it for a number of factors, and it nearly killed me. But something happened as you read in my books that there's a you want to know what a trauma vampire is first. There's a click below to a previous video I did of me a long time ago in a field talking about up in the mountains. But the trauma vampire is the person who comes in the guise of a fair weather friend, but they're really only there to get suck energy off you, and they actually make you feel worse because even when you're trying to recover, they they continue to bring you back down to the original spot where the pain happened. They make you relive it over and over again because the trauma vampire is feeding from it. They're not always pathological. Like a lot of the pig arsehole biddy types. A lot of them are trauma vampires. They're feeding on people's suffering, feeding on people's pe- uh, anguish. But it's not always malicious. It's a drug they're addicted to. In some cases, it is malicious. And I'm going to give you an example of one because I saw she was involved with this guy who I saw a few weeks ago, and I couldn't understand why the two of them were ever together. He was younger than her, he was more interesting. All she ever did was complain and bitch and moan. That's all she ever did. But she was also like one of these she was like one of these sort of beyond middle age social justice warriors. She's if you I was looking at her Facebook page today. It's full of this shit. Like she's organizing bus groups to go see the latest Ken Loach film in some Irish town, and she's going to take people who are unemployed and make them sit through this movie so they're like even made feel worse about it. That kind of thing. And it's all done under the guise of she really cares. But it's all feeding. It's all feeding. And I saw this guy a few weeks ago, and he's with a new woman, and he looks like a completely changed man. He's walking around holding her hand, and he's with this woman a long time now, a couple of years, and he's holding her hand, and he looks really happy, she looks really happy, and they look really suited together. And that got me looking through my emails as when she used to email me, this woman the woman he was with, and she came into my life about 15 years, 12 years ago. Uh, she knew I was going through a bad time and started talking to me and emailing me and phoning me, and it was all done under the guise of support. And so she would there'd be times I didn't want to talk about it, and then she would kind of goad me to talk about it. I'd be trying to move on. I'd be trying to get on with my life, and she'd goad it out of me. She'd like, oh, do you remember the time, blah 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 blah, and all this kind of thing. And so then I would like get a point where I wasn't holding, very upset. I couldn't hold it in anymore, and then I would just start venting, not in a hysterical way. I was just saying, yeah, this and that. I kind of talk like this, typical like Irish guy who's like not feeling the best and has got a lot of problems and just lets it out. He doesn't. An Irish guy doesn't scream and shout about it. He talks about it like a moderate kind of tone, very matter of fact. And this went on for a while, and then it wasn't that I became addicted to her, but she made it quite known that I could talk to her anytime I wanted. And I'm not the kind of person who imposes on anyone. It takes a lot for me to open up to a person for about my own, my own stuff. I keep it all quiet, and a lot of it's because I don't like to. I know other people are dealing with shit in their lives, and I don't like to bother people. I don't like to impose myself upon other people. I'm kind of very unselfish that way, and that to my detriment often. I don't let it out. And it's not that I have like a lot of problems. I never did. No, I don't really. I don't have any now, really major ones any more than anyone else is dealing with. But this is a particularly rough period. And so one day, I this has been after a series of like weeks and weeks of this woman sending me, "I want to talk about this, talk about that, talk about that," and I just sent a casual email, and it mentioned something that happened with an event that happened that it kind of just I just mentioned as a matter of fact, and it just like I said, something one is kind of, can you believe this has happened? They did this person did this now, or this situation happened now, and I get this sudden email back on, Thomas, I can't be here at every waking moment for you, answering every one of your emails. I'm nearly 60 years old and I have a life of my own. And you're pushing yourself. And I'm like, what? This is after her spending months goading it out of me. And deliberately calling me or contacting me or emailing me or phoning me to get me to speak up when I didn't want to, and then sort of like kind of like prizing it out of me. And even then, I was only just mentioning in casual email, like, "Oh, look what just happened," this kind of one of these kind of emails you send to people, and it was like, I'm nearly 60. My life is like I can't be doing. What do you? You're very set. And I was like, fuck. I was like, what? Where'd this come out of? What had happened was she'd found someone else. She'd found another juicy orchard. And what these people are kind of like, they're proto-psychopathic in that sense. I was an orchard that she was feeding on for a while, and she depleted all the apples she could get out of it, and then she fancied oranges, or she fancied grapefruit, or she fancied pineapples, and she found a banana or a pineapple plantation next door, and started moving in on them. I suddenly was surplus, that the new energy was coming somewhere else. I found out later on that it was an unmarried mother who had been left, has two kids from a guy, and he suddenly ran off with some Polish girl that he had met at work. And the girl was all, so she was now doing the same to her, saying, giving the kind of like the pretend support, like, well, it's terrible that he left you, but he did put on some weight, that kind of thing, this kind of beastly thing, and that kind of shit, or well, the Polish girl's really beautiful, that kind of thing. And so this is the kind of limited trauma vampire, that they suck you dry until they find another orchard they can eat. They're usually just past middle-aged women just moving out of their middle-age years, heading towards retirement. The old biddy types, and they're usually monsters. They're absolute monsters. And you do get men that are like that, but my experience has always been a woman. And they usually prey mostly on women, but for some reason this one had an interest in me. And so that's one to look out for. If they suddenly, out of the blue, say to you, "Oh, I haven't got all the time in the world to deal with your stuff like this," after months and months of prizing stuff out, if you're dealing with a piece of shit. So don't take it personally, because in some cases, when that happened to me, I was just about over it anyway, and I was getting my things were coming back together good again for me. But there was still lingering issues in the background. Of course, I'm still human. But if this happens to you, and so many people, this could throw them right back, because if they have a sense of low self-esteem while they've been in a divorce, or they've had someone leave them, or financial issues, or they've been picked on or bullied at work, or anything, this could be being suddenly told, "Oh, I've had enough of you. I've had enough of you. It's not, the world does not revolve around you." This can throw the person right back into the very start of their trauma all over again. And because they'll start thinking, is there really something wrong with me? Even the person who's trying to help me is sick of the sight of me. Maybe I should kill myself. Maybe I should just give up hope. And that's what makes these cunts, and they are cunts, these old pig arse bitches. That's what makes them so fucking dangerous, because they could throw a person who just needs a bit more support back into the depths of suicide and depression. and that's why they're monsters. This is why I always say, if you have this kind of thing, uh, there's a lot to be said for dealing with it inside. Now, I know women say things like, "Oh, men hold their problems in, and they don't spill them out by women like women do." And women do spill their problems out. But one of the things I've noticed at this stage of my life, I'm 52 now, so I'm fucking outfit now, and I've been through the ropes a lot, is that the men who keep it in tend to have a better success rate at moving on than the women who let it all out. I'll tell you why. The women who let it all out, telling their friends and everybody, are often betrayed by their friends and things like that. Also, they become addicted to this problem in a lot of cases because it's just the nature. I don't know why. I'm not trying to sound sexist, but this is what I've seen in my life. And they they don't move on. They don't move on. They just learn how to talk about it for years. The men who process it, yes, some may fall into alcoholism, some may come into suicide, some may go into depression, but the majority of them will burn it out inside their heads. And women, so there are women who do this as well. There's women who also do this also. They burn it out inside themselves, and they go through the motions. And eventually, like I always say, creativity is a fantastic way of getting out of this. This is one of the mistakes that couples whose marriages are failing or relationships are failing, they often have a baby to try and fix it. That's the wrong kind of creativity because you've created an irresponsibility. You haven't created anything. And creativity is a great way to build a house, move to a new town, get a new job, start a new project, and just do something, anything. And this is why I'm always saying to people, be very, very careful who you open up to. Even if they're not psychopaths, they could be these trauma vampires who just want to suck you dry. And when they've had enough of you, they'll say, "Oh, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm 60. I've got my own problems in my life. You're so very, very selfish. You're so very, very selfish." These types, and they will be as bad as they're proto-psychopaths, and they will be as bad as it. And then you must immediately not go to them and say, "What did I do wrong?" You must immediately see that monster, that parasite. Well, it's a parasite for what it is, and let it go because you didn't do anything wrong. You just encountered a human tapeworm. That's all you encountered. So look after yourself and look at the video on the original or the link below for the original topic. Thank you.